Beautiful human being, welcome back to another episode of Soul Speaks with SPAC. In today's episode, we're going to be focusing on why you being the nice guy, the people pleaser that keeps the peace and smooth sails your way through life is destroying your relationships. And as always, at the end of this episode, I'm going to share some actionable tips that you can walk away with and implement right away to become the respectable man that you already are, to be the man that you're here to be, that the world wants to see. So make sure to stick with me until the end of this episode to not miss out on those tips. Now, let's get into the episode. The first thing for you to understand is why on earth you've become this nice guy in the first place, and how this is now leading to more arguments, a lack of trust, a lack of respect, and a lack of connection within your intimate relationship. I'm going to help you understand how this may have come about in your life, and I'm going to share how this came about in my life. But first, you must understand the difference between being nice and being kind. Being nice typically comes from a place of weakness. We choose to be nice in order to get something in return. We want to be approved of. We want to be validated. We want people to think that we're a good person. And so we put on this act, but underneath all of that is a belief that I am not enough as I am. So I need to put on this act to be validated and approved of by other people. On the other hand, being kind comes from a place of respect. It comes from a place of love and honesty and truth and authenticity. And people can feel the difference between you putting on that nice act and you being authentically and genuinely kind. There's a huge difference there. Being kind comes from a genuine place. You're being kind because you get to be kind. You're not being kind to get something in return. You're being kind because it is a reflection of who you are and who you know the other person is as well. On the other hand, being nice comes from a place of weakness and lack and insecurity. You're being nice because you believe internally that who you are is not enough. So you've got to put on this act to be approved of and validated by another person. The problem with this is that no matter how nice you are, no matter how perfect you are always going to be left feeling disappointed and unfulfilled and disrespected. And this is because you don't respect yourself. This is because you haven't accepted yourself. This is because you haven't chosen to be your true authentic self, and you're wearing a mask to be who you think other people want you to be. Something important to note in relation to what I'm saying here is that as humans, we are social beings. We thrive in tribes, and we are picking up and putting on so many different masks throughout our day. And most of this is happening automatically. We're not even really aware of it. When we go into work, we got to put on the employee mask. When we go home, we got to put on the mum or the dad or the son or the daughter or the partner mask. We're wearing all of these different masks, and we want to be accepted. We want to be loved. All right, there's not a problem with that. You're not a bad person, because we all do this to some extent. The problem is when this mask becomes your personality. It becomes your way of being, to the point where you lose yourself. You forget about who you are and what you like and what lights you up in life. And you disregard all of that. And your life is now centered around pleasing and appeasing and keeping the peace and smooth sailing your way through life. And you avoid and you fear conflict. Your life is run by fear. So now, instead of living from this place of love and honesty and trust and authenticity and kindness and respect, you're living from this place of freezing and appeasing and pleasing and avoiding and living through the lens of fear and putting on a brave face and smiling your way through it, whilst underneath the hood, underneath all of that, feeling angry, frustrated, disconnected, withdrawn, disassociated, and numb. And this is why it's important to understand the difference between being nice and being kind. The difference between wearing a mask and hiding and pleasing and appeasing and freezing and shutting down and being angry, and being courageous and truthful and honest and authentic and speaking your truth and advocating for yourself and going after what you want in life. There's a huge difference between that and being the nice guy, the people pleaser, the guy that hides away in the background, in the shadows. So now I invite you to consider where you're at on your journey. Are you living truthfully and honestly? Are you speaking up for yourself? Are you going after what you want in life? Or are you living in the shadows? Are you freezing, pleasing, appeasing, shutting down, withdrawing, getting angry, not speaking up for yourself, not going after anything in your life. Where are you at right now? Become aware of that. To help you understand how I ended up in this situation, I'm going to share a quick story from when I was a young little boy. And if you've tuned into any previous episodes, forgive me because you may have heard this story already. I'm the oldest of three boys. I've got two younger brothers, but for the first couple of years of my life, it was just my mum, my dad, and I before my brothers came into the world. And I remember being 2 or 3 years old and crying hysterically. I can't remember exactly why I was crying, but no one came to be there for me. My mom, my dad, they weren't there. And I remember this moment really impacted me. I don't know why, I don't know what happened, but this moment impacted me. That's all I can remember. And it wasn't until more recently, having a conversation with my parents, they told me a story in relation to this experience that made things click. Things started to make a little bit more sense. So apparently in that moment, my parents could hear me crying hysterically. And my mum's natural instinct was to come in and to support me and to hold me. But my dad put his foot on the door. He didn't want my mum to get in because in his mind, he figured that I would learn to self-soothe and I would learn to figure things out on my own. And I can understand his thinking. I don't think that my mum or my dad are bad people. In fact, they're incredible. I love my parents and I don't blame them in any way. But this definitely impacted me. This definitely impacted me. And what this evolved into afterwards was years of suppressing my feelings, because this evolved in this idea that big boys don't cry. And if you cry as a man, as a boy, it's weak, it's feminine, it's emotional, it's soft. And I didn't want to be that. And what happened in that moment when I was a little child, I created a story that when I cry and express myself and get upset, no one comes to support me anyway. So what's the point? And what I've unraveled within myself as I've dived deeper into this work is that for many years, I was so afraid of conflict. I was so afraid of disturbing the peace to the point where I would be quiet. I would never speak up. I would never speak my mind. I wouldn't communicate or express my opinions or my needs or my desires because I wanted to stay small. That way I didn't have to rock the boat. That way I didn't have to deal with any stormy seas. That way I didn't have to feel any sense of discomfort. But what was happening underneath all of this is I was burying and suppressing my truth, my authentic expression, and putting on this act of being a people pleaser and focusing so much more on what I could do to make other people like me. What was happening throughout all of this was me burying my truth and me suppressing my authenticity to maintain connection. But underneath all of that, I was disconnecting from myself. I was disconnecting from myself to try and feel connected to other people. But it had the opposite effect. What actually happened was the more that I disconnected from myself, the more disconnected I became from other people and from the world as well. This led me down a destructive path: binge drinking, drugs, partying, clubbing, steroids, using the gym, using food as an escape. All of this pushed me further away from myself. All of this pushed me further away from my heart, from my soul. All of this destructive behavior closed me up even more. All of this destructive behavior created more tension and tightness and more of a barrier around my heart. And so it's important to understand that that people-pleasing, nice guy behavior is all a survival mechanism. It is a survival mechanism that you developed as a young and innocent boy to get you through life, to feel safe. So you're not a bad person for having these survival mechanisms, for having these nice guy, people-pleasing tendencies. But if you want to become the respectable man that you already are, it's time to let them go. It's time to see them for what they are, survival mechanisms, so that you can liberate yourself and let them go. As promised, I'm going to share some quick and actionable tips that you can walk away with today and implement right away to be the man that you're here to be and to let go of the people-pleasing and the nice guy tendencies. The first step is to become aware, because without awareness, you've got nothing. Awareness is the foundation. It is the pillar that you can then grow and evolve from. Awareness is the first step. Second step is to acknowledge and accept the fact that you have these people-pleasing and nice guy tendencies right now. Because without acknowledging and accepting where you are right now, you're living in denial. you're denying the truth, and you can't grow and evolve from that. The third step is to seek to understand how you got to where you are right now. And you can do this by going back to your past and thinking to a time throughout your childhood or some previous time where you may have experienced something traumatic that led to you suppressing your voice, that led to you holding on and burying your feelings, that led to you people pleasing and focusing more on what other people need. See if you can go back to a pivotal time in your life. If you don't know the specifics or if you can't remember, that's totally okay. This is not do or die. It's simply an opportunity for you to be aware of how these people pleasing and nice guy tendencies may have started and originated in the first place. And if you identify a moment back then that is very triggering or traumatic for you, can you breathe into that? Can you make space for that? Can you be with that? Can you visualize that younger, innocent little version of yourself as a young little boy? And can you be the support that he may have needed back then that he didn't have? What would you say to him? What would you do to him? What would you be for him? You can use this as a meditation practice. You can visualize that younger version of yourself, that little boy back then, and you can hold him through that pain. And you can create a relationship with him and build that relationship with him and say, I'm going to take care of you now. I'm going to listen to you now. I'm going to support you now. I'm going to let you come through now. That inner child, that little child wants to come through. And that's freaking beautiful. Step number 4 is to set an intention for how you want to live, for how you want to honor your inner child. In those moments where someone upsets you and every part of you wants to shut down and withdraw and not say anything at all to keep the peace, to avoid that conflict, what is your new intention? What is your new way forward? For me, as challenging as it can be, I acknowledge what I feel. I take ownership of what I feel. And if I feel like I've got to speak up for myself, I do it because I love that other person. I respect that other person and I respect myself. So step number 4 is to set your intention. What is your new way forward? What is your new way of being? How are you going to manage and navigate through conflict when it comes up in the future? Instead of shying away, how can you open to it and lean into it and use it as an opportunity to create more connection rather than disconnection? Step 5 is to surround yourself with other men that are on this path as well, that want to grow, that see the best in you, that want to see you grow. Maybe they see more in you than you see in yourself. Find a men's community, whether it's online or in person or both. Get yourself around other men that want to see you win. This is incredibly important, and this has been very impactful for me on my journey to the point where I've decided to start my own online men's community. So if that's something that calls to you, if that's something you feel interested in, DM me the keyword on Instagram, brotherhood, and we can have a conversation to see if that could be a good fit for where you're at on your journey. Apart from that, this is a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if you have any questions or thoughts, drop them down below. Be sure to share this with a friend that you think could benefit from it. Until the next episode, venture beyond limitation. Let's go.